Hello there, African Queen channel team, family, and all you new subscribers and all my old die-hard subscribers. Karibuni tena. Welcome to another episode of the African Queen channel show. Yes, we are here. It's a bright sunny day today, which is fabulous. Yesterday it was threatening to snow and the weather was freezing. You're wondering what I'm doing here with my cat. I'm trying to be a good cat pet owner because, hey, I want to make sure she doesn't go out there and get pregnant. Because if she goes out there and gets pregnant, I'm going to be deemed as an irresponsible owner in this country. Can you imagine? Huh? Just allowing animals just to be natural, to be themselves, I could be considered an irresponsible pet owner. Ooh. I'm just grateful because whenever she goes out there, she doesn't find any cats that are not neutered. She's not neutered. She needs to be neutered like really soon. Remind me to tell you guys about the story of Cats Protection, this organization that's in the UK, where these big celebrities, look after cats and spend so much money and contribute so much money to the cats and do all kinds of things like jumping out of aeroplanes and things like that for cats. Imagine doing bungee shows and jumping out of aeroplanes for cats. Yeah, that's how much these things command. That's how much respect these animals command in this country. Anyway, I'm not here to talk to you about cats. Right now, I'm here to talk to you about politicians. Yes, we're back to the subject of politicians again. For those of you who have been watching and giving me thumbs up, I really appreciate. Please remember to thumbs up this video, like it. The more you thumbs up my video, the more subscribers come on. Imagine they're coming on. We're soon going to hit 1,000 subscribers. I believe that. You subscribers invite other subscribers to my show because me, I talk sense. Yeah, I talk sense. I do my research. And I've decided from now on I'll be taking notes because you are very important to me and I don't want you guys wasting your time here. I want you to benefit from your time watching African Queen Mo channel because sometimes I like to have fun. Sometimes I'm going to bring you my personal stuff. All I'll tell you is for all you men out there, happy International Men's Day, which fell on my birthday, which is on the 19th of November. We celebrated in the house and I took some footage and things like that. But because I'm getting a little bit weary of sharing too much with children, anyone who's under the age of 18 now, you have to be careful with the media industry. So I'm just going to hold back that video for now until the time I feel that it's okay to share. Okay. All right, guys. So have you guys been following the Kenya West story? Wow, that thing has been so shocking. As much as we're going to talk about politics, this is all about politics. It's politics and the media and how the media is used to either decide to either to include you or exclude you, depending on your decision whether or not to play by the piper's tune. It's just amazing just to watch Kanye West. I've developed a newfound respect for this gentleman who is being portrayed as a mentally ill or is emotionally damaged. But actually, this man has his head on his shoulders. But that's a story for another day. But in the meantime, I wanted to help all of you Kenyans right now who are disappointed with the Kenya Kwanza government. I want to help you manage your expectations. To be fair, a government or a person cannot commit to more than they already said that they will commit to. Yeah, what did they say that they're going to commit to in 100 days? So the Kenya Kwanza government that came into power about 70 days ago has been under great scrutiny from many of us. Basically, Ruto himself said that he wants to be held accountable, that he's going to encourage the opposition to keep him accountable for his promises. And so that's what we're here to do. We're not here just to criticize, but we're here to critique. Critique is positive and negative. It means that we are applying our analysis and our judgment fairly on the Kenya Kwanza government, because we know that you in there, some of you are supporters of Kenya Kwanza government, some of you are not, some of you are completely Azimio and some of you are neutral, some of you don't even care, don't even know what Kenya Kwanza is. Kenya Kwanza means Kenya first. America has a holiday called the Kwanza. Kwanza is first fruits. Let's manage our expectations of the Ruto government. What did he actually promise the people? What did he promise? Okay, so he promised some things in the first 100 days, and I managed to pick up about 12 issues that he promised on. Mainly, it's about police reform, it's about the military, it's about the civil service and the public civil service, it's about international partnerships and freedom of worship, really, and the justice sector reform. Do you know there's only so much that one can achieve in the first 100 days, but everybody seemed to have agreed with him. And if you go online, you'll find all this information there, and everybody was clapping and saying hallelujahs and very excited about the first 100 days in office and what he promised to do. But when I looked at it very keenly, I noticed one thing. Majority of his promises were focused on government, on military, on government, on religious organizations, on international partnerships, on security, really, and military. I do not see a lot to do with hustlers, a lot to do with the green economy, agriculture, for example, or a lot to do with blue economy, ocean economy, for example. I didn't see very much in that term, but I saw a lot of promises to the public sector. And I think he is delivering on that promise, starting with the judiciary and the police. Okay, so let's go one by one. In the first 100 days, Ruto outlined that his government priorities would be mainly enhancing opportunities and work conditions for the public sector. Okay, not the private sector that employs 84% of Kenyans. Are you aware that private sector, the small and micro enterprises, employ almost all Kenyans, literally, that are employable? Yeah. So the focus was mainly on the public sector. And I believe the way I look at it is that public sector is there to provide a conducive environment for business. Hopefully, yeah. It's also there to control and manage the population. Yeah, that's a fact. So that is where his main priority is. So number one is security sector reform. So Ruto promised to reform the security sector. That includes the police, where he said he's going to implement what he calls the Independent Budget and Accounting Office. Okay, so he's going to implement the Police Service Commission, PSC, with an independent budget and an independent accounting officer. Because he said he didn't want to see the police begging for money. Yeah, because as he stated, he who pays the piper plays the tune. And that has been the problem of what he calls weaponization of the Criminal Investigations Department and people like those going after just a few people and not everybody, and not practicing fairness. So he feels that probably by enhancing the independence of the police through the Police Service Commission, then in that case there will be more fairness and more justice. I don't know, everybody was clapping to that. I don't know what that really means, yeah, but I don't know. Why should the police be independent? Shouldn't it be part of the government? Anyway, so basically the reforms were about aligning the police pay structure as well, yeah, to the terms in the military, so that there's a less of a gap between the police and the military. And so that, they don't seem to be competing against each other. The thing he promised with the police was that they were going to have insurance cover. Yeah. And cover the loss of lives for all police officers while on duty, which is similar to the military. Again, trying to reduce that gap between the police and the military. Okay. So the Kenya Kwanza promised to review and improve the remuneration of security sector officers so that they're commensurate with the cost of living. So I think he wants to make the police happy. Again, he also wants to help them have access to good and decent housing. So he's going to enhance affordable housing mortgages, which are similar to the judiciary, the parliament, and the public service and the police. So basically, it's the idea of harmonization of benefits across the different sectors of government. Okay, so those are the police reform issues. And the police were extremely happy and they were cheering loudly. You could hear it in there. I don't know if I can play the clip, but I'll try. Okay. With the military, he promised them the same thing. He promised them insurance through a contributory benevolent fund for fallen or terminally ill officers, including mental illness. So mental illness is on priority list of the Kenya Kwanza government. So I think there should be funding for mental illness, and I've covered it on this channel before. Yeah. And they know that, by the way, when you're in the front lines, you've heard about this thing called PTSD. Yeah. Post-traumatic stress disorder. We don't know to what extent. We've heard about the police or the military people performing acts of crime, such as, self-inflicted harm and also harming their family members, probably because of untreated PTSD. Or even, when they go into duty, to lines of duty, instead of actually doing like peacekeeping, not necessarily Kenyans, but instead of actually being peacekeepers, they become peace disruptors in some countries, The second thing he said, and he promised, and he actually implemented, was with the justice sector reform, with the judiciary. Okay, so he promised to operationalize the judiciary fund, which was 2% of the total budget, national budget, required to run the judiciary. And he promised to do that in a timely manner because he said that justice delayed is justice denied. So what he did, like he said he's going to do that, I think, within the first 7 days. I think he probably did it within the first 3 days. If you notice, the other thing he did, he promised to, of course, appoint all judges nominated by the Judicial Service Commission through the Court of Appeal on the first 7 days. Fair enough, actually Ruto lived up to his promise with the judiciary. And now looking back, there's this thing called the benefits of hindsight. When I look back at the judiciary and I wonder, about the way that they actually passed that verdict and the words and the terminology that they used, hot air, sijui, wild goose chase, words such as those which are so unprofessional. I asked myself, what do they have to gain? Is these promises, or they wanted to make sure that they were going to be beneficiaries of these promises with the government? So, hey, But that's just my view. Maybe wrong. I don't know. Let's just check it out. We said we're going to try and be fair. But on the other hand, when people look a little bit too confident in the way that they deliver messages, then you have to think, who is the piper playing the tune? Using the words of our good friend, Dr. Ruto, His Excellency Ruto. All right. So what else did he promise? He promised the hustlers that Kenya Kwanza would end all unauthorized property demolitions, describing them as a spectacle and unconstitutional and inhumane. Okay, and he said that they should not happen anywhere. Kariobangi, places like Kariobangi and Korowosho, which are slum areas, where they experience all these property demolitions. Businessmen, small businessmen go and they come back and they find all their property has been razed to the ground and they have nothing left, and they're crying and they're being, they're out there in the cold, especially around Christmas time. You notice that a lot of people were losing their properties. Let's wait and see what happens in December. Because usually these property demolitions and burning of property and destruction of property happens around Christmas time, just before Christmas. Let's wait and see what happens, yeah? You see whether there's any difference. And the second thing was that he was going to end what he calls ethnic profiling in the issuance of IDs. I don't know what that means, ethnic profiling in the issuance of IDs. Does that mean that identity cards were only given to certain people from certain regions of the country? What I know is that maybe there are some pockets in the country where, for example, where there's a border between the country Kenya and maybe Somalia, where there are questions about whether these are really Somalis or whether they're really Kenyans. And those are the very minority. But to think that ethnic profiling was a really widespread problem, I never heard about it before. Maybe you guys can correct me. I stand to be corrected. So he wants to end ethnic profiling and by establishing what he calls an administrative appeal tribunal to ensure fair registration of persons with appeal procedures put in place. That means that you can appeal any decisions within 14 days and get a response. He promised to do all this within the first 100 days in office. He has exactly 20 days to go, which is about a month. Let's see whether he manages. Now, by the way, that's all he has for hustlers. The only thing he has for hustlers is to protect their property. And the second thing is to allow them to be registered fairly, I guess, so that they can vote. Those are the two things for hustlers, nothing else. When it comes to freedom of worship, what I heard in the background there was hallelujah. And I wondered, what is it that he's promising on freedom of worship? Well, His Excellency President Ruto, before he was president, promised to respect, defend, and protect the freedom of worship, lifting the existing moratorium on new religious institutions and expediting registration processes. What all that means in simple lingua is basically that he's going to allow anybody to go and register any sort of religious institution that you want. I guess there was a moratorium there. You couldn't just register anybody. I don't know whether Hare Krishna were registered. I don't know whether, any religion that you come up with can be now registered. By the way, if you want to have a religion where you actually worship pets and animals, you can go ahead and do that. Because, by the way, if you want to worship the sun and the moon, go ahead and register, because not only will he expedite it, he will protect it and defend it. Yes, so there we go. That's what he said. Freedom of worship. Worship anyone, worship anything. You are free in Kenya to come and set up your institution, okay? And that will be expedited, okay? And the processes will not be difficult anymore. Then we have the public service reform. As if we haven't already talked about public service enough, because we have the military and we have the police already taken care of, okay? And the judiciary. So now, public sector reform, now devolution. Devolution is a devolved government. You know, the government of Kenya is a devolved government. We have the national government, which is basically the one in the capital city, Nairobi, where we have all the big offices. And then we also have the devolved structures, which is kind of like the US, where we have governors and different counties. Okay, like about 46, 47 counties in the country. Yeah. So we have devolution. So he said he's going to complete the transfer of all functions constitutionally earmarked as devolved functions. He said he's going to strengthen intergovernmental institutional functions of the Council of Governors, IPEC, the summit, and make sure that they meet regularly. So the idea is, I think, you know, there has been like a divide between the national government and the county government. He also talked about ensuring what he calls horizontal transfer options to people in the service. In other words, if you are, for example, a project officer working in one ministry, then you can maybe at national level, maybe you can easily transfer to the county level, or vice versa. You know, so there'll be horizontal transfers even across the police force. If you're working with the police anywhere, you can come also work in the civil service. He wants to make that process easier. Enable transfers within departments as long as you're within the same cadre. Okay, the other thing he said is going to review the formula for resource sharing between the national and the county level governments. Yeah, because there's been this question about how much money should go to counties and how much money should remain at the national level. You hear very much that counties and governors sometimes complain about not having adequate resources for implementing their mandates with the people. You know, questions about that. I have my own views about that. For example, agriculture. You know, agriculture was devolved to the counties. And what that means is that now counties are free to actually decide to support their farmers, or to decide to bring in food from outside and get into tenderpreneuring. Yeah. So maybe that is why we are now more focused on importing our food rather than promoting investments and promoting and protecting our farmers. And in some cases, there are positive gains, such as, for example, free education for children is still at the national level, which means that children's free education is still protected and the government has to actually provide funding for it. The same thing with roads. The government is responsible for roads at the national level, but the problem is that sometimes question about, you know, fair distribution of the national, what they call cake, you know, becomes an issue. So I believe this was some of the issues that were carried over and learnings from the previous government, because as you know, Uhuru actually inherited the new constitution that actually was, yes, it was promulgated in 2010, and therefore he was kind of new into it. You know, he was kind of like the first president who started with the new constitution. So really, you know, that wasn't a very easy start for the Jubilee government, so to be fair. But they have had their lessons and they have their lessons learned. So the other thing that he's going to promote is international partnerships and foreign policy. He said he's going to engage robust and creative policy to raise Kenya's profile as a regional anchor state. He said he's going to give a place of prominence of Kenya's diaspora, and including a ministry of diaspora. He said that he was also going to ensure that he amplifies relationships of the government with other internationals, such as America, the rest, with the rest of the world, that is the US, China, Europe, UK, etc. The government of Kenya Kwanza really wants to amplify Kenya to the rest of the world. And you can see that actually Ruto has made so many international trips. You know, he travels so much. He's been to the US, I don't know how many times. He's been to UK, I don't know how many times. He's been to Congo. Right now, he has sent 900 military officers to Congo to keep the peace. I didn't know that Congo was actually at war. But anyway, yeah, KDF soldiers are down there. He has also now, you know, invited what he calls international investors into the country. We saw Bill Gates the other day there. They have now imported 10,000 metric tons of GMO corn. They have lifted the ban on GMOs. So, you know, he's making everybody happy in the international community, opening Kenya to trade, you know, and doing whatever he can just to show that, hey, we're here to play business. We're here to do business with you. Let's do it. Yeah. Let's not talk about the ethics of it all, but let's just say that that is his commitment. I believe the military reform also will build the morale of the soldiers in the Congo and help them to keep peace. So, what do we think about this? What are your views about this? When I was reading on, and I also looked at comments, people's views about these 100 days in office commitments of Ruto are kind of like in various categories. The first thing they say is that, okay, this is wonderful. There are some people who think this is absolutely fantastic, brilliant. They think that he's a brilliant statesman and that he really knows what he's doing. And, there's never been such an intelligent president in the world, or such an intelligent presidential candidate who eventually became president. Yes. And while there are others who are not buying it at all, they actually see that as a lot of, what do they say? There are a lot of propaganda. They think it's overambitious. They think there's no plan, there's no funding. What about the funding? What about, the focus on money? If you have a plan and you don't have funding to tell us how you're actually going to achieve that, then it's a useless plan, isn't it? Yeah. So they say, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So to some extent, I would agree with that. And I would say, yes, great plans. But how are you going to be funding all of this? How are you going to fund the judiciary fund, 2.5% of the budget? Yeah, when already we are in the red. How are you going to fund it? Yeah, why are we not talking about anti-corruption? Why are we leaving out corruption? Why are we not tackling it? Yeah, why do we not have, something, even a mention of corruption? And we know corruption is a big issue in our country. It's one of the things that has been an impediment to our growth. Why is there no focus on the green economy or the blue economy? The green economy talks about things to do with energy, transport, air travel, even things like open skies, opening the skies to other players, to, other airlines, so that, for example, Kenyans can have easier access to flights. So, for example, somebody asked, there are so many Kenyans that are living in Mombasa and working in Dubai. Why don't we have direct flights from Mombasa to Dubai, from Mombasa to London? Why don't we have them? And another thing is agriculture and forestry. Why don't we have any focus or any mention in the first 100 days what you're planning to do in the area of agriculture and forestry? And again, another question, people asking about the blue economy. The blue economy talks about things to do with fishery sectors and marines and coastal resources. As you know, Kenya has a very extensive coastline. I live on the coast when I'm in Kenya. And the question is, what are we doing with our marine life? What are we doing with the coast? What are we doing with our beautiful resource of the coast? Why are we not maximizing opportunity? Why are we not just taking the fish out of the ocean, protecting our oceans, making sure that our oceans are clean, that our oceans are conducive, for marine life, that our oceans continue to be a tourist attraction that can bring us millions of dollars into the country, that our oceans continue to be a refuge and a resource for Kenyans and for other Africans, that our oceans continue to be a viable transport option for Kenyans. We can use the oceans to actually travel. Why don't we travel by boat, by ship, by sea? Why? So there's a lot that has not been covered by that manifesto. Some people think it's a bit overambitious. Some people said, oh, he sounds like he's coming from the moon, like something that's landed from the moon. Some people are saying, oh God, these promises just have, they're all over the place. Yeah, there's so much confusion, kind of hoodwinking the population. And it presented in such a complicated manner, such a very elitist thing, with so many details. So when people don't understand it, when it becomes so complicated, they feel that it's deceiving them. Yeah. Others believe that, there's nothing new that Ruto is bringing to the plate. He's just borrowing from the past, taking credit for the past government's achievements and the competition's manifesto. So the competition is Azimio. And in Azimio's manifesto, there was this thing called Baba Care, providing universal health care, which they're saying has already been achieved by the previous regime. So what else is Ruto bringing in? Because we already literally have universal health care to some extent, at least in the public hospitals. So they feel that this is kind of like theft of the manifesto. The same thing going for the textiles, where later in the first year the Kenya Kwanza government is also talking about raising the profile for Kenya when it comes to textiles and manufacturing of sports goods, which is basically what the Azimio manifesto was also saying, that they wanted to get rid of the second-hand goods and build up the textiles industry. And this goes hand in hand with GMO cotton harvesting, what is called BT cotton, that was harvested in 2020, planted in 2020, has been harvested. Okay, and we have plenty of cotton in the country, and we can start our own ginneries and actually start textile manufacturing. They were bringing down the Azimios and criticizing the Azimios manifesto or Azimios plans to get rid of second-hand clothing. And meanwhile, in the back door, they're talking about doing the same thing, except maybe calling it like we're a big sporting nation and we should actually be producing sports textiles. And important for me as a woman is that the Ruto administration actually signed an agreement with women, okay, to ensure that we have 50% representation in the Kenya Kwanza cabinet. Unfortunately, this did not materialize. Although, in the first 100 days, that is in the first 3 months of his administration, Ruto committed to actually initiate this process and ensure that by the end of the first year, the government cabinet will be representative of 50% of women, who are 50% of the population. And many women actually voted for Ruto for that reason, hoping that they would be represented. And unfortunately, it's certainly not been achieved. In fact, I think it has been underachieved. In addition, we were hoping that we would actually see less and not more civil servants in the government. And unfortunately, now we have, instead of the 42 that were there in the Uhuru government, we have like 49. So I think he has added additional key officers who are going to be, demanding pay from the taxpayer. Areas of control seem to be the priority for the Kenya Kwanza government, not areas of freedom. A freedom area is where you think about business, for example, where you're free and you're working for yourself. Business people do not feature highly in the Kenya Kwanza manifesto or even in his commitment for what he's planning to do in the first 100 days. So all those business people in Kenya right now who are saying, why are you not looking at our taxes? Why are you increasing the taxes for us? And all those people who are complaining about the high cost of food, the high cost of electricity, the high cost of petrol in the country, that's just because the Kenya Kwanza manifesto does not consider that priority in the first 100 days at least, and perhaps not even in the first year of service, or even not even in there at all, because their interest is actually to enhance and strengthen the role of government. You're going to feel the heavy-handedness of government with the Kenya Kwanza administration. And that's what I see so far. Yeah. So I think strengthening the government oversight and control of the population is the most important focus of the Kenya Kwanza administration. So I would say the hustler narrative seems to have gotten lost somewhere in there, because you cannot call military hustlers. Police are not hustlers. The judiciary are not hustlers, are they? Public service, those are not. Religious institutions, those are not hustlers. The only place where I see hustlers being addressed is protection of their property, okay, so that they will not be unauthorized property demolitions, and ethnic profiling with registration of IDs. That's all I see for the hustlers. So you hustlers out there who are demanding so much from Kenya Kwanza government, could you please stop it? Yeah? And go back to work and figure out what you're going to do by yourself, because you're on your own. You're on your own for these 100 days, you hustlers, okay? You hustlers, we hustlers, we should all know. I'm also a hustler. Yeah? I'm a hustler in my own way. Yeah? Because I am not employed by anyone. I'm not employed by government. The only way to survive as a hustler, go and look for a job in the government, because actually the civil service is priority for the Kenya Kwanza government from what I'm seeing here. Correct me if I'm wrong. Thank you so much for listening to me, and let's continue this wonderful discussion. Okay, cheers guys. Love you very much. Thank you so much for watching, subscribing. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. Remember to like, thumbs up this video, subscribe and share. Until next time. Bye-bye.